this is our pivot build. So what you'll do is, here we got laid out. This is how the shadow board will come. This is the main pivot. These are our motor holders and our strakes. Like any of the other builds, we're going to start by just dry fitting the holes here. And you will just make sure they go in. And you can test them with one strake. This hole will not be used. If there's any fettling, that's the time to get out one of the files. And as long as they all go in and you hear that sound, you're in good shape. Now this hole will also not be used. There's a light a little bit. There we go. And you're, again, just dry fitting. All the strakes go in. You're in good shape. Now the next part is you're going to want to test your bearing. If there's any fettling that needs to go on, these motor marks will slip on. This one goes in real nice. This one goes in real nice. And the first part that we do in this setup is we're going to glue these 6 strakes into place. So best thing, get out a piece of paper towel, move to the side, get your goggles on, get your gloves on, and part, and you can take off the little Velcros that came off. You're going to have some short strakes, 126, and you're going to have some long strakes, 146. The long strakes will go into this part of the pivot that sticks out, and the short strakes go here. And you need to do all 6 strakes at once because they're inside, they're going to connect, and you want to use that. So you're going to put I'm using our epoxy gluer. We sent those kit ones out. And again, just to make sure, got my short, my longs. You got the intersection where those carbon fiber strakes we're sticking in there actually touch each other. We want that carbon fiber on carbon fiber. And just we're not using that one, so I'm going to start with these 3. Get the epoxy, and this is one where you can be generous inside there. You want that glue. Well, that's a little messy. To work with the other epoxy that's coming down in there. Again, you're going to take your short strakes first. You just slide them in and out. And you're gonna, sometimes we got some escape ports for that excess glue. And you can kind of hear that glue working its way up inside. That one just felt, you can tell a little bit, some friction, need a little more. And so go back in, press them down, and then again, you're not going to put glue in this hole. You're going to use these 3. I might need more epoxy for the rest of this. Just fill up that well. And add more glue. Use it as a lubricant right now. You want it glue on carbon, or epoxy on carbon fiber on epoxy. And you'll feel it hit, and then push it down. Same one on this one. You can feel that hit right in there. And then this one. Oh, yep, that one. And if it's not going down for you, it can come over here, maybe. Man, these lock in with these new design.
Yeah, they do lock. And you can put some pressure on that and pound it down. Just going to put it on the table and smash it down when it's sticking out.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if I can't loosen them up, but there you go. And what that's telling me, when you're getting that much friction, if you can get them out, get some more glue in there. You can tell that wasn't very covered. So you can be generous.
See it come out of the port there.
Yeah. So these little epoxy escape ports, we call them. I still need more glue in this guy. There we go. You can see it push up right there. Just trying to get this other straight in a little better.
Just push it hard.
Really hard.
Yep, it'll get in there. Get some energy.
Yeah. That one longer cut. There it is.
There you go.
So it will take some force, but you're going to want same amount coming up on either side. And this is a good time to wipe this piece down because of those ports to let that glue out. It's going to put the epoxy and make sure you absolutely clean off the strakes because we're going to be sliding other components on top of them. And where I miss is always get inside here, those inside edges. The more cleaning you do now, the less swearing you do later. So that's the first glue phase when it comes to the pivot. And again, apply some force. I think I was being a little weak on not pushing them in as hard as I could have. And again, as you're looking at this, you got this strake who's touching this one, and this one touching this one. So that's creating this really nice right angle of carbon fiber on carbon fiber. Also going to get a new sheet of paper. And we're going to hop in the time machine, the TARDIS, and we have one ready and glued. So the next part of this is what we did here was we actually put some just painter's tape on here to get the code disc orientation. And you see the lip, I can't tell if that's shining right, Kent.
Yeah. It's,
Any better?
angle the, there you go.
So the lip of the code disc you want pointed in towards the pivot. And we wrap this tape around just to make the friction of the code disc a little easier. And so that way you align it, put it in, and this lip here is to protect it. We were building these before we added this little extension. We were breaking these, and that's just no fun. So what I do is I start with that one. Put your pivot on like this. You're going to grab one of your stepper motors with the harmonic drives on them, and then what we did was we put the protective covering on it so you wouldn't ding up the harmonic drive. Now this is a good time to test your bearings, because what it is we're going to put this bearing down. You're going to grab this is your motor mount. Take off the Velcro that was on it for the shadow board. And see this notch right here? That's going to align to where the motors are, like that. This gives it a notch. We don't put a straight through here. So as you're looking, the wires will go where the straight is not. So the first thing we do is you're going to slide your bearing on. And then slide your motor mount. And then finally, this will slide in. It may take some maneuvering around, but in general, that's how this will, yeah. So I just dry fitted it to make sure I didn't have to play with any fettling around this rim or this rim where the motor mounts go through. So pull it apart. We can keep this on here. Now, don't do what I just did in the dry fit. Run your wires through the hole of the middle of the motor mount. Again, lining them up with the notch. The tricky part, and it looks like I did not bring my hook, but we'll see if we can't wire these without it. Yeah, feed the wires through there.
I got this here.
Yep.
Back through the other way.
And we got tape. So one of the things that we do is go in the top.
You should be able to see it come up there.
And wire it through.
Perfect.
We're going to take our lead,
Some more.
tape our motors to it. I'm hoping I'm getting that in. And start to pull your wires through.
You actually need to go
Feed 'em.
through the center of the transmission first.
It did.
Oh, you did. You got it.
Yep.
All of it.
And of course that will happen once or twice.
This is a good place to Kevlar too.
Got more of that tape.
Even hot glue.
Or just better taping skills.
fat.
It's too fat, so try and thin it out. I might be doing this again. Yeah. Oh, come on. There you go, one more time. Sorry about this, guys.
Technique.
One more piece of tape. I'll try it while we're waiting for the heat gun. All right.
I'm going to tie it on with the right, let's tear the tape for you.
Yep. We're going to edit this part out when we put it back on the on the drive, or practice some patience. And it still might be too big. Okay, success. So again, bearing. And then you can align these. This has 2 more glue phases, so. Oh, yep, and I put it in wrong, so. I put my channel in there. That's not where it goes. Again, channel wires, pull them down through there.
And make sure that they're one layer, because they're 2 layers. So keep that.
Yeah, make sure that the wires coming down through there are single layer.
On top of each other.
Yeah. And the wires are going to go down where there's no streak. Pull the wires through, and you're going to put some glue right here on the bottom. So, and gluing this, just make sure you don't get it on the bearing. Then you can slide the motor mount down, and then you're going to apply more glue right in here. And now you're also going to glue up where the motors go on the strake. So you can push this down, and what I do is make a bead up and down. Should be wearing gloves, apologize. And the last one, again, make sure your wires line up, and now you'll be adjusting right up the top. Pull the wires, you're going down. Little massage work, and continue to pull, and you're going to seat it. Now, because this is such a vital part, and we want it glued up well. You're going to put a bead of epoxy down each seam, and you can be generous here too. Now, make sure you get stuff off the bearings. So if you glued up before you're going to put it in a rig. Clean. Yeah, and because you're going to have a bearing sit right on here, anything on your post you're going to want clean. So one of the best ways then to let this dry, or the way I recommend it, is the base you made on the previous build. We're going to stick it down into that. And I already inserted the bearing here. And what you're going to find, and it's worth dry fitting the bearings. What we've found is in some humid conditions, we can get some swelling, which make this difficult to insert the bearing. So what we did was, and I can share the link with you, we made a little reamer to ream out this part. So what we did here was we just, and this, it's in our owner's manual, and I'll post it here in the Q&A. And then we just, best sandpaper to use is the 100 grit. We got 400 in here now. But you can set it in here to make sure that bearing seats. And be patient. It could take 5-10 minutes to have that bearing seat properly. And then this unit comes in here. And so we're lining up the bearing on that motor mount and here. And this may take some pressure to push it down. Does that mean visible?
Yep, it's visible.
And on there. So I got it pretty far in there. And I got it fully seated. And it didn't pop out here. So what that's going to do, and this pivot disc does not go in the base. We're just going to let the pivot cure this way. And easiest drying method is take the base, and just kind of set it in here. And give it a turn. That way you know everything's centroid and aligned. So as it's curing in the right position throughout the whole assembly. And you will let this dry for at least 2 hours. We recommend 4. You're going to pull everything out, and you're going to repeat the same steps on this side. So once this cures, you're going to pull out the unit and repeat on this side. This one is actually much easier to run the wires through because it's a straight shot. You don't have to tape it. You don't have to do anything. Another trick we do is when we're taking this off throughout the project, we'll leave the tape on on this one, or even some extension of this to make it easily identifiable when we're wiring the motor boards, that this is our pivot motor. So that helps, and you'll see that in later builds. But this is what we would call the second glue phase. And the third glue phase is doing the same thing here. So I'll open it up to questions, comments. I see right here, James asked, would tying them in a knot, that was my earlier failures on getting those wires through. Be too large? Yes, James, the diameter in there isn't that massive, but as you see, what I did that helped me was I just looped the lead cord around and then tied them up. And the other thing is make sure you do a wire count after you get it through. If you lost one in there, that's just going to be painful. So make sure you got 4 wires on the end of this. Let this cure, again, 4 hours, and repeat. If there's a desire to see that step, I will certainly show that. If there's, you can let me know via email. You can reach my email at toddenerson@hdrobotic.com. Also, I'll put this little, I'll put this up in the owner's manual, and also I can do it, if you bear with me. I am going to post the link for that reamer. The 65 mil reamer is what we're calling it. So I'll put that in the chat. So that'll take you right to that. If you got a 3D printer, print that up, grab some 400 grit sandpaper, and just be patient. You don't want to just sand that area around. Whole goal of this is to keep things centered. Is there any other questions? We'll be rendering this. It did record. We'll render this, and this will be posted up on our webinar space by tomorrow. The next build we'll be doing, and it will be a long one, and we're deciding if we're going to break that down into 2 builds, will be the arm body. Arm body. That actually we can do in 1 build. The end arm is the one that is the longest, but give this a rotation. While it's drying, just come by, rotate it. What you might notice is that friction you're feeling isn't from the bearings. If you actually lift this up and rotate it, it runs very smooth. But what you'll find is this end cap cover will kind of rub on the base light. Now, this was a nice addition. We were building these without this cover, dinged up a few of our harmonic drives. Those were sad moments. But James Newton, one of our first vacations, said, put a cap on it. And so we did, and that's how all the products shipped in your kit. So if there's no questions, we'll end this one and have it up there. And again, if there's ever a question you want to see a build or something we do, in fact, I think I'm going to put one up there on Fettling, one of the pieces for the differential early next week. And we might not do a webinar on that, we'll just post it. Thanks again for watching, and we'll be back next Thursday with a build, and we will be back on Tuesday. Fry will be there with a DDE webinar. Thanks again.